There is a quiet truth that both science and spirituality have been whispering to us all along. We are not separate. We are threads in the same invisible fabric. Quantum entanglement. This mysterious phenomenon of physics reveals something almost poetic. Two particles, no matter how far apart in the vastness of space, can still move in perfect response to each other. What happens to one is reflected in the other, instantly, without delay. Now pause with that image for a moment. Imagine two stars on opposite ends of the sky, still dancing in rhythm, or two waves in the ocean, moving as one, even though miles of water lie between them. If this is possible for the smallest particles of matter, then what about us? You and I, living, breathing beings, carrying awareness and longing. Could it be that we too are entangled, not only with each other, but with the very lives we dream of? This is where it becomes deeply personal, because maybe, just maybe, the life you have been yearning for, the peace, the freedom, the sense of fulfillment, isn't something distant you have to chase. Perhaps it has always been here, waiting just beneath the surface of your awareness, like a radio frequency already playing. But you've been tuned to the wrong station. Quantum entanglement is more than a scientific curiosity. It is a mirror. It shows us that separation is an illusion, that distance is not what we think it is. And if two particles can defy the boundaries of space, then your dreams are not over there, somewhere far in the future. They are woven into the same fabric that makes up who you are. The connection is already established. The question is not if you are connected, but when you will remember it. Think of it this way. A seed in the soil does not have to invent the tree. The oak is already encoded in its essence. All it needs is the right conditions: light, water, time, and what is hidden begins to reveal itself. In the same way, the reality you long for is not something you must construct piece by piece with sheer effort. It already exists in the field of possibilities, entangled with your very being. Your role is to create the inner conditions that allow it to emerge. But here is where many of us stumble. We believe we must push harder, control more, fight against the current. And yet, haven't you noticed? The river never forces itself upstream. The ocean does not struggle to be vast. The stars do not compete to shine. Their greatness comes not from effort, but from alignment. The same is true for us. Your dream life doesn't come closer by tension, but by tuning, what science calls entanglement. Spirituality calls oneness, and both are pointing to the same thing. You are already connected to more than you can see. When your inner vibration matches the song of your dream, it begins to reveal itself in your outer world. This is why moments of deep stillness, gratitude, or love feel so powerful, because in those moments, you are closest to the frequency of the life you desire. You are not trying to force it, you are remembering it. So let me ask you this. What if the distance between you and the life you want is not measured in miles or years, but in resonance? What if your longing is not a sign of lack, but a quiet reminder that the life you seek is already entangled with you, waiting for you to lift the veil of doubt? When we begin to see this, life becomes less of a chase and more of a dance. The dream you carry is not a stranger. It is your twin star, already moving in rhythm with you, no matter how far apart it seems. Your job is not to create the light, but to stop covering your eyes. And so, the invitation here is simple, though not always easy: shift from effort to awareness, from control to trust. Quantum entanglement tells us connection is instant, timeless, beyond distance, and your heart, your consciousness, is the tuning dial. When you choose to soften, to allow, to remember that you and your dream are already linked, something remarkable happens. Life stops feeling like an uphill climb and begins to flow like a river returning to the sea, natural, inevitable, whole. That is the deeper meaning behind this scientific mystery. It is not abstract. It is intimate. It is the reminder that what you desire is not out there, but entangled right here, within you, awaiting your permission to unfold. 1. Parallel realities and the art of changing the channel. There's something liberating in realizing that you don't have to build a brand new life from scratch. As if the future were a house, you must lay brick by brick with blood, sweat, and years of sacrifice. The truth is far more compassionate and far more mysterious. Within the quantum field, countless versions of reality already exist. They are not fantasies, not illusions, but potential lines of life waiting quietly, like unopened books on a shelf. Each one tells a different story of who you could become, and each one is just as real as the one you are living now. When you understand this, the question shifts. Life stops being about creating something from nothing and begins to feel more like tuning a radio. Every station is already broadcasting. You don't invent the music. You don't beg the station to play for you. All you do is turn the dial, and suddenly, you're immersed in a different song. Parallel realities work in the same way. They don't need you to force them into existence. They simply respond to the vibration you are carrying inside. I know what it feels like to believe that change has to be heavy, that transformation demands struggle. I've walked through seasons where I thought, if I worked harder, if I controlled more, if I held my breath long enough, maybe life would finally bend to my will. But life has its own quiet wisdom. It doesn't respond well to force, it responds to resonance. The day I understood this, it felt as though I had stopped fighting the current of a river, and, for the first time, allowed it to carry me forward. Imagine your life as a television screen, filled with endless channels. One channel shows you trapped in worry, scarcity, and self-doubt. Another shows you at peace, living with ease, aligned with love. Both are playing right now. The remote control is in your hands, but here is the secret. You don't switch channels by pressing buttons on the outside world. You switch by changing the frequency within yourself. Your beliefs, your emotions, your state of consciousness. These are the real controls. It's almost funny how simple it sounds, yet how difficult it can be in practice. Because the mind clings to the familiar channel, even if it is painful. We replay the same stories, the same fears, as if we are addicted to the static. But the quantum field is patient. It waits for the moment you decide to soften your grip, to breathe, and to risk tuning into a new song. That single act of inner willingness to let go of the old vibration and open yourself to another is the true work of transformation. Think of it like a lighthouse. The beam of light doesn't chase ships across the ocean. It simply shines steadily in one frequency, and those who align with it find their way. In the same way, when you adjust your inner state, when you choose gratitude over bitterness, curiosity over fear, love over judgment, you are changing the beam you broadcast. And in response, you step into a different parallel reality. One that was always there, waiting for you to tune in. There is no distance to travel in order to reach these realities. It is not a matter of years or miles. The shift happens in an instant, the way a radio snaps from static to symphony. The only journey is inward, from resistance to allowing, from doubt to remembering. And yes, I know how the old life can pull you back. Sometimes it feels safer to stay with the pain you know than to open to a joy you cannot predict. But let me tell you, the first time you taste the freedom of shifting your inner channel, you realize the door was never locked. It was only waiting for you to turn the handle. So perhaps the next time you catch yourself repeating the same old story, I can't change, life is too heavy, this is just the way it is, pause. Recognize that this is only one channel among many. Ask yourself, what station am I tuned to right now? And more importantly, Am I willing to try another? Because the life you long for, the peace you crave, is not far away. It is already broadcasting. It has always been here. All that is required is a change in your inner frequency. And when you dare to shift, even slightly, the screen before you begins to change. The faces look kinder. The opportunities feel closer. The weight on your shoulders feels lighter. This is not magic. This is resonance. And in that moment, you realize the most profound truth of all. You were never trapped. You were simply tuned to a channel that no longer served you. The remote was always in your hands. 2. The power of the present moment. The present moment is not as small as it appears. To the rushing mind, it seems like nothing more than a passing breath, a second on the clock, a point between past and future. But to the deeper self, this moment is the only doorway that ever truly exists. It is not a bridge to somewhere else. It is the somewhere. I used to believe my life would change once I reached a certain milestone, when I earned more, when I healed from the past, when I felt finally ready. But each time I arrived at those places, the horizon only moved further away. The peace I was chasing kept slipping into tomorrow. It was only when I stopped and sank into now that I discovered something startling. Everything I thought was waiting in the distance had been here all along, hidden inside the present. This moment is alive with choice. Every breath offers you the chance to continue vibrating with the same old patterns, the resentment, the fear, the story that says you're not enough, or to shift into a different rhythm. You don't need to fix the past to step into this. You don't need to predict the future. You only need the courage to let this breath be new. Think of it like standing at a train station. Trains are constantly arriving and leaving. One carries you to the same destination. You visited 1,000 times the land of doubt, stress, and scarcity. Another train pulls in quietly, heading toward peace, openness, and possibility. Both trains are here. Both doors are open. And the only question is, which one will you step onto in this moment? The beauty is that the choice is never once and for all. Life doesn't demand you stay perfectly tuned every second. It only invites you to notice, to remember, to return. The present moment is endlessly patient. No matter how many times you wander into old vibrations, it welcomes you back. I've lived through nights where the weight of regret was so heavy, I thought I would collapse under it. I've carried anxieties about the future, so sharp they stole the taste from my meals and the joy from my days. And yet, whenever I managed to simply breathe, to feel the air enter my lungs, to notice the ground beneath my feet, something softened. It wasn't dramatic. The world didn't change instantly, but I did. The tight grip loosened. The storm calmed just enough for me to see a sliver of light. That sliver was the present moment, whispering, "Here I am. Come rest in me." The quantum field responds not to your plans, but to your vibration. And vibration is always rooted in now. You cannot vibrate yesterday. You cannot vibrate tomorrow. You can only feel, breathe, and choose in this moment. That is why the present is so powerful. It is the only place where transformation is possible. When you truly realize this, the chase ends. You stop running after a future self who is wealthier, healthier, happier, and instead, you begin to embody the vibration of that self right here, right now. You don't wait for life to prove you're worthy of joy before you feel joy. You let joy rise now, even in small ways, a gentle smile, a grateful thought, a sip of water savored slowly. And that tiny shift opens the door to a new reality. The present is not passive. It is not about giving up. It is about giving into the flow of life, the current of energy that has been guiding you all along. When you settle into this moment, you stop rowing upstream. You let the river carry you. And suddenly, the scenery begins to change. You notice opportunities you missed before, kindnesses you overlooked, possibilities that feel almost miraculous. But they were always there. It was your presence that allowed you to see them. So if you find yourself lost in the noise of what was or what might be, pause. Place a hand on your chest. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. Whisper to yourself, "This is the only moment I need." And in that whisper, you will find freedom. Because the power of the present is not in its length, but in its depth. One conscious breath can do more to change your life than years of unconscious striving. One moment of awareness can open doors that effort alone could never unlock. The present is the key, the doorway, the meeting place between you and the life you dream of. Step into it gently, again and again, and watch as reality rearranges itself around the frequency you now hold. 3. Time is only an illusion. We are taught from the very beginning to see time as a straight road past stretching behind us, future stretching ahead, and the present as a single step along that line. It seems so obvious, so incuestionable, that we rarely pause to ask if it's true. Yet if you've ever sat by the bedside of someone you love in their final days, or if you've ever been caught in a single breathtaking moment that felt eternal, you know that time does not always move the way the clock insists it does. Sometimes it stretches, sometimes it collapses, sometimes the past feels more alive than the present. Sometimes the future feels so close, you can taste it. What if this was not an accident? What if the truth is that time is not a line at all, but a tapestry layers of experience existing at once? Interwoven, overlapping. The quantum physicists hint at this when they speak of simultaneity, of realities unfolding in parallel, of probabilities existing side by side until observed. And the mystics have always whispered the same thing in a different language, that eternity is not a span of endless years, but a depth available right now. Think of memory. When you recall a painful or beautiful moment from years ago, it does not arrive to you as a faint shadow. It comes alive. Your body tenses, your heart warms, your eyes fill with tears. In that instant, the so-called past is not gone. It is here, woven into the present. Likewise, when you imagine a future that excites you or terrifies you, your body responds. Now adrenaline surges, hope lifts, fear contracts. The future is not ahead of you. It is vibrating in your nervous system in this moment. This is why I say time is an illusion. Not because minutes and hours don't exist. We all must meet deadlines, cook meals, and catch trains. But beneath that surface structure, reality is not divided into before and after. It is all happening now, like layers of music playing at once. What you call your future is not waiting somewhere far ahead. It is already here, a melody softly playing, waiting for you to tune your ear to it. I remember when I was younger, I kept thinking my real life was going to start later, when I had more success, more stability, more certainty. I rushed through days like they were only stepping stones to a destination somewhere down the road. But every time I got close, the road stretched longer. The horizon kept moving. I never arrived. It was only when I began to treat each moment as complete in itself that I realized the future is not something I reach. It is something I allow. My dream life was not hiding behind years of effort. It was already present as a possibility. And when I aligned myself with it, I stepped into it, just as easily as stepping into a different room. This is not theory. You have felt it too. Think of the moments when joy surprised you out of nowhere, the laughter of a child, the smell of rain, the quiet beauty of a sunset. In those moments, you did not feel yourself moving through time. You felt timeless, whole, present, and that is the truth of existence. The dream is not in some distant tomorrow. It is layered into this very breath, waiting for you to notice. If time is an illusion, then regret begins to loosen its grip, because regret lives only when we believe the past is fixed, unchangeable. forever chained to us. But when you see the past as another layer of the present, you realize you can choose how to hold it. You cannot erase what happened, but you can change its meaning, its weight, its vibration in you. And in that shift, the past is reborn. If time is an illusion, then fear of the future softens too. Because fear lives in the story that the future is out there, racing toward us, unstoppable. But if all possibilities already exist in parallel, then the future is not attacking you. It is waiting for your choice. The life you dread and the life you long for are both playing softly in the background. You do not need to outrun one or chase the other. You simply need to choose which music to turn up. There is a deep relief in this. Life is no longer a race against time. It is a dance within eternity. And you do not need to be perfect at it. You only need to pause, breathe, and remember, the dream is not ahead. It is here, layered beneath this moment, ready to be lived. So when you feel trapped by the story of your past or overwhelmed by the pressure of your future, place your hand gently over your heart and remind yourself, it's all here, right now. I am free to choose the vibration I carry, and then step into that choice, not as a desperate leap into the unknown, but as a simple remembering, because you are not waiting to become someone else in some distant time. You are already that self. You only need to tune in to the frequency where your dream life is already alive. 4. Belief as the key. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the walls around them are not made of stone, but of belief. For years, I thought my limitations were written in facts, my upbringing, my circumstances, the choices I had made. I thought life had handed me a script, and all I could do was play my part. But slowly, quietly, I began to see that it wasn't the world holding me in place. It was the beliefs I carried about what was possible, about who I was allowed to become. Belief is subtle. It doesn't shout. It lives in the background, shaping what you see, what you attempt, what you give yourself permission to receive. A belief is like a lens. If the lens is scratched, the whole world looks broken. If the lens is small, the horizon shrinks to fit it. You think you are trapped, but it is only the glass you are looking through. The quantum field, the invisible fabric that holds all possibilities, responds not to what you say you want, but to what you truly believe you can have. And here is the quiet tragedy. So many of us never step into our dream lives because deep down, we don't believe we deserve them. We say we want love, but we believe we are unworthy. We say we want abundance, but we believe life is always hard. We say we want health, but we believe our bodies are fragile. And so the field reflects back the vibration of our belief, not the wish we whisper. But here's the grace. Beliefs are not fixed. They are not chains welded to your soul. They are choices, often unconscious ones, repeated until they feel solid. And just as they were built, they can be unbuilt. The key is not to fight them directly, not to shout, "I believe," when deep down, you do not. The key is to create space to soften, to allow, to open. Belief is not blind faith. It is not pretending everything is perfect when your heart knows otherwise. Real belief is permission. It is saying, I don't have to control everything. I don't have to know how. I am willing to let life surprise me. It is not about forcing certainty. It is about letting go of resistance. I learned this in one of the hardest seasons of my life. I was clinging so tightly to the identity I had built, to the story that kept me safe. I told myself that if I loosened my grip, everything would fall apart. But in truth, it was my gripping that was suffocating me. When I finally released, when I stopped defending who I thought I was supposed to be, something unexpected happened. A new door opened. Possibilities I had never considered began to show up. It was as if life had been waiting, patiently, for me to let go. Belief is the key that turns the lock, but it is not a heavy key, not a weapon you must wield with force. It is light, like a feather in your hand. You don't need to hammer at the door of your new reality. You need only to unlock it by softening your heart, by letting the old beliefs fall like autumn leaves, and by allowing yourself to step across the threshold. Think of a child learning to walk. They do not analyze whether their legs are strong enough, whether gravity will cooperate, whether they will embarrass themselves. If they stumble, they simply trust in their body, in the ground, in life itself. And in that trust, step by shaky step, a whole new world opens. This is the same with belief. You don't have to know every detail. You don't have to guarantee success. You need only enough permission to take the first step. When you release limiting beliefs, you create space. And space is what allows the new reality to flow in. If your hands are full of old stories, you cannot receive the gift waiting for you. But when you let them go, even just a little, you open your palms to the unknown. And the unknown is where miracles enter. I often tell people belief is not about convincing yourself that the new reality is coming. It is about allowing yourself to be surprised that it is already here. The life you long for is not far away, dangling beyond your reach. It is layered into the now, if just waiting for you to believe. You can touch it. So, if you find yourself stuck, circling the same patterns, I invite you to ask gently, what belief am I still carrying that keeps me here? Do I believe I am unworthy? Do I believe life must be a struggle? Do I believe joy is for other people, not me? And then, without judgment, just breathe. Because the moment you see the belief, you begin to loosen it. And in loosening, you make space. Belief is the key. Not belief in someone else's authority, not belief in a doctrine forced upon you, but belief in possibility, belief that life is more generous than you have been taught, belief that you are allowed to receive, and perhaps most of all, the belief that you don't have to fight for your new reality. You only need to allow it to stop standing in the doorway with your arms crossed, and instead, to step aside and let it enter. The door has always been unlocked. You are the one holding the key. And the moment you choose to use it, the world you thought was impossible quietly becomes your home. 5. The role of visualization and intuition. There is a quiet power in the human mind that most of us overlook. We think imagination is something children play with, a kind of daydreaming without value in the real world. But what I've come to see, after years of stumbling and learning, is that visualization is not child's play. It is the mind's way of tuning into a reality that already exists. It is not about pretending. It is about aligning. When you close your eyes and see yourself in a life that feels expansive, joyful, or free, you are not inventing a fantasy. You are choosing a frequency. Just as a radio does not create the music, but simply finds the signal already in the air, your visualization is the dial that turns you toward the channel of a new life. It may not be visible yet, but it is real. You can feel it, even before you can touch it. I remember a season when everything around me looked bleak. My circumstances were loud with fear and lack. If I had measured my future by what I could see with my eyes, I would have believed the story was over. But I began a simple practice each night. Before sleep, I let myself imagine a different scene, not elaborate, not a detailed plan, just a feeling of peace, of enoughness, of waking up without dread in my chest. At first it felt foolish. My mind argued, this is not real. But something deeper whispered, it is real enough to be felt, and that was enough to keep me going. Over time, those inner pictures softened the walls I had built around myself. They gave me a place to rest when reality felt too heavy. More importantly, they began to change the way I carried myself in the world. When I had seen myself living with peace, I walked into my day with a little more calm, When I had felt the weight of abundance in my imagination, I stopped grasping so desperately at scraps. Without realizing it, I was broadcasting a new signal, and slowly, life began to respond. Visualization is not about forcing an image into existence. It is about letting your inner world lean toward what feels alive. If your heart longs for freedom, see it. If your soul aches for love, feel it. The picture is not the goal. The resonance is. Because resonance is what shifts your frequency. And then there is intuition, that quiet, steady voice that does not shout, but nudges. Intuition is like a compass that has never lost its way, even when we ignore it. We often expect guidance to arrive in the form of certainty, a step-by-step plan, a flashing sign, a guarantee. But intuition rarely works that way. It comes as a subtle tug. Call this person. Take this turn. Pause before you say yes. Small, ordinary instructions that make little sense in the moment, until later, when you realize they were leading you to the very thing you had been visualizing. I once ignored that inner nudge. Many times, I convinced myself I was being rational by dismissing it. But what I was really doing was clinging to fear, and fear, though loud, has never guided me to where I wanted to go. It was only when I began to trust the gentle pull of intuition that I saw how life could unfold with surprising ease. The call I made at the right time, the chance encounter that opened a door, the random idea that became the next step, none of it was random. It was alignment. Visualization and intuition are partners. Visualization sets the frequency, the destination you are aligning to. Intuition is the map, the guide that points you to the steps that bring you closer. Without visualization, intuition has no context. It is like holding a compass without knowing where you want to go. Without intuition, visualization stays in the realm of fantasy, never crossing into the tangible. Together, they create movement. Think of it like sailing. Visualization is choosing the direction, setting your sails toward the horizon you want to reach. Intuition is the wind, invisible but present, carrying you forward, shifting subtly when the current changes. If you trust both, you arrive, not always on the exact timetable you planned, but in the right place, at the right moment. The trouble is, we often dismiss both. We call visualization just imagination. We call intuition just a feeling. But those justs are the very tools that bridge the unseen with the seen. The most transformative moments of my life did not come from logic alone. They came when I dared to see what wasn't yet visible, and when I dared to act on the whisper that told me how to step closer. So, if you find yourself stuck, overwhelmed by the weight of what is, I invite you close your eyes. See yourself in the life your heart quietly aches for. Don't strain. Don't demand. Just let the picture rise, even if it's faint. And then, when you open your eyes, listen. Pay attention to the subtle nudges that follow. The call to rest, the urge to reach out, the impulse to take a step you hadn't considered. These are not accidents. They are the map. Visualization is not pretending, and intuition is not guessing. They are the most intimate conversations you can have with the quantum field, the dialogue between your soul and the universe. And when you learn to trust them, you discover something humbling. Life was always conspiring with you. The picture in your mind was not a dream. It was a memory of the future, calling you home. 6. Collective meaning. There is a quiet truth that many of us forget: our choices ripple far beyond ourselves. We like to imagine that our lives are contained within our own skin, that what we feel, I think, and do belongs only to us. But life is not a closed system. It is a field, and every shift in your vibration touches the whole. When you choose love over fear, when you choose generosity over lack, it might look small. Perhaps it's just a smile to a stranger, or a moment of patience when you could have snapped, or a breath of gratitude when your mind wants to spiral into complaint. But in that instant, something happens. You're not only changing your internal state, you're sending a frequency out into the world. And because the field is shared, that frequency doesn't end with you. I've seen this in my own life. There were times when I was in the grip of despair, and someone, without knowing, lifted me with a simple act, a kind word, a gentle gesture, even just the presence of calm in their eyes. They may never know the difference they made, but their vibration reached me, and later, when I had the chance, I passed that light to someone else. This is how collective transformation works, like a chain reaction. One spark of love igniting another, until the darkness begins to thin. It is tempting to think that changing the world requires grand gestures, revolutions, massive projects, visible victories. But I have come to believe the opposite. The world changes when we shift the unseen atmosphere between us. When enough of us choose love instead of fear, kindness instead of bitterness, courage instead of resignation, the collective field tilts, and then what once felt impossible suddenly begins to unfold. Science calls it resonance. Spirituality calls it oneness. But names don't matter as much as experience. You know it when you feel it. When you walk into a room heavy with tension, and you sense it before anyone speaks. Or when you walk into a space filled with joy, and you can't help but smile. That is the collective field in action. It is real, and you are part of it. So every time you do the inner work, every time you shift your vibration from scarcity to sufficiency, from resentment to compassion, you are not just healing yourself, you are planting seeds for collective awakening. Your choice becomes a doorway through which others can walk more easily. I remember one evening, sitting quietly after a long day, my chest heavy with worry. I decided to place my hand over my heart and breathe slowly, whispering gratitude for even the smallest things, the roof above me, the breath in my lungs, the simple fact that I was alive. It seemed so personal, so small. But the next morning, a friend told me she had felt an unusual sense of peace the night before and didn't know why. We hadn't spoken, yet somehow, the field we shared carried the resonance. That was the moment I understood we never heal in isolation. Your transformation is never just yours. It is an offering. The universe is woven from threads of consciousness. And when one thread shifts, the tapestry changes. You may not see the immediate effect, but trust that it happens. The child who grows up in a home where one parent chooses calm instead of rage will carry that ripple into every life they touch. The stranger who feels seen by your kindness may pass that kindness to dozens more, and the collective vibration rises, one invisible choice at a time. This doesn't mean you must carry the burden of saving the world. It means you are invited to remember that your healing, your awakening, is not selfish. It is service. When you choose love, you serve the whole. When you anchor peace in yourself, you give the world a place to rest. It is easy to underestimate the power of this. We live in a culture that glorifies the visible, the measurable, the dramatic, but the most profound changes often begin in silence, in the unseen decisions of ordinary people to live a little more open, a little more kind, a little more present. Like underground roots, they spread quietly until one day the surface blooms. Imagine for a moment if millions of us, just for a single day, chose to shift our inner frequency toward love. Wars would lose their fuel. Fear would lose its grip. The structures built on division would begin to crumble, not by force, but by the withdrawal of energy that once sustained them. This is not naive. It is practical. Systems survive because enough individuals unconsciously feed them with fear and compliance. But when individuals awaken and choose differently, the collective inevitably transforms. So, the next time you catch yourself wondering, What difference does my little choice make? Remember this: your vibration is never wasted. It enters the field, it joins with others, and together, those vibrations weave the reality we share. Your personal awakening is the world's awakening in seed form. Every time you return to love, you plant a seed in the soil of humanity. It may take time to sprout. You may never see the tree, but trust that the roots are growing. And one day, perhaps when you least expect it, the garden of our collective life will bloom with the very fragrance of the love you chose in silence. 7. Cosmic rhythm. There is a rhythm to life that no amount of force or impatience can alter. Like a symphony unfolding note by note, the universe has its own timing, and every seed planted in your heart blooms in its appointed season. Yet, when we are living inside the pressures of survival, the waiting feels unbearable. We look around and wonder why our dreams haven't taken shape, why our prayers seem unanswered, why life doesn't bend to the urgency we feel. I used to wrestle with this deeply. I thought delay was rejection, that silence was indifference, that time itself was my enemy. But slowly, I began to understand what looks like delay is often preparation. The universe does not deny. It aligns. It waits until both you and the world around you are ready to meet in harmony. Think of a piece of music. If you rush one note, the whole melody stumbles. If you try to skip to the crescendo before the theme has been introduced, the beauty is lost. Every pause, every rest, even the silence between notes, is part of the music. Life works the same way. What you call waiting is part of the song. I remember planting a small tree in my backyard years ago. Each day I would check, hoping to see new leaves, new growth. But for weeks, nothing seemed to happen. Frustrated, I thought perhaps the tree was weak or the soil was poor. Yet beneath the ground, roots were spreading, deepening, preparing to support a life that would outlast me. Months later, when the first green shoots appeared, I realized the waiting had never been wasted. The delay was growth I could not see. In our own lives, it is the same. What feels like stillness is often the most profound movement. When the job doesn't arrive, when the relationship doesn't unfold, when the dream doesn't manifest, perhaps the soil is still preparing. Perhaps the roots are anchoring. Perhaps you are being given time to become the version of yourself who can truly hold what you're asking for. The rhythm of the cosmos is not built on speed. It is built on readiness. The flower does not bloom in winter, not because it is denied, but because its time is spring. You are no different. The longing inside you is a seed, and the universe is not punishing you with delay. It is ensuring the conditions are right so that when you receive, you will not lose it. There were seasons in my life when I received too soon, when I forced outcomes out of impatience, and every time, I found myself unable to sustain what I had gained. The weight of it bent me. The lack of preparation cracked me open. Only later did I see that the timing had been off, not because life was cruel, but because I had not yet built the strength to carry the blessing. Timing protects us as much as it delivers to us. I think often of rivers. They do not rush to the sea in a straight line. They curve, they bend, they widen and narrow. At times they seem to pause, pooling into lakes, only to flow again when the land invites them onward. The water never doubts it will reach the ocean. It trusts the path. That is cosmic rhythm, a flow that cannot be hurried, yet always arrives. So, if you are in a season of waiting, perhaps it is not a punishment but an invitation to trust, an invitation to grow unseen roots, an invitation to listen to the silence. As part of the song, you are not behind, you are not late. You are exactly where you are meant to be in the great unfolding of your life. And one day, the rhythm will shift, the melody will swell, the opportunity, the connection, the breakthrough you longed for will appear, and it will feel almost sudden, But you will know it was never sudden. It was always being prepared, always on its way, always waiting for the right moment to enter. Cosmic rhythm is not something you control. It is something you align with. You align by softening your grip, by releasing the urgency that says, if it doesn't happen now, it will never happen. You align by trusting that the universe, like a wise conductor, knows when to bring in each instrument, when to let the drums thunder, when to let the violins rest. And here is the deepest truth. The delay you fear is often the mercy you cannot yet see. The universe is not withholding your dream. It is shaping you into someone who can live it fully. And when the rhythm says, now, you will look back on the waiting not as wasted years, but as sacred preparation. So breathe. Let the music of your life unfold at its pace. Know that the pauses are not empty. They are part of the song. And trust that when your season comes, the bloom will be more beautiful, more enduring than anything you could have forced by rushing ahead. Because in the end, life is not about racing to the finish. It is about learning to dance with the rhythm of the cosmos step by step, note by note, until the melody of your soul and the music of the universe are one. 8. Quantum science and shifting. For most of my life, the language of science and the language of spirit felt like they belonged to two different worlds. One spoke in equations and experiments, the other in silence and prayer. Yet, as I grew older, I began to notice how these languages were not at odds but often saying the same thing in different dialects. What mystics whispered thousands of years ago, scientists are now proving with particle accelerators and quantum experiments, and perhaps the bridge between them is this: we do not need to force life into being. We only need to shift awareness into the frequency where it already exists. Quantum physics has shown us something both unsettling and liberating, that reality is not as solid as we once believed. What we see as fixed is, in truth, a field of probabilities. Particles exist not in one place but in many, until they are observed. This is not just abstract theory. It is the very ground of your daily life. The table in front of you, the chair beneath you, the body you call your own. All of it is a dance of particles, vibrating in and out of possibility. Take quantum tunneling, for instance. In classical physics, a barrier is a barrier solid, impenetrable. Yet in the quantum world, particles sometimes pass straight through barriers they should not be able to cross. The impossible becomes possible, not by force, but by nature. When I think of the walls I once believed kept me trapped, I remember this principle. Perhaps the barrier was never as fixed as I thought. Perhaps, like a quantum particle, my consciousness could move through it by shifting perspective rather than fighting against it. And then there is entanglement. Two particles, once connected, remain mysteriously linked. No matter how far apart they drift, touch one, and the other responds instantly, as if distance does not exist. Scientists scratch their heads at this. But to those who have ever loved, it feels familiar. Haven't you felt someone's presence across miles? Haven't you sensed their sorrow or joy before a word was spoken? Entanglement tells us what the heart has always known. Connection is not limited by space. We are woven into a fabric where every thread touches every other. Decoherence. 2. As it quiet leçon. A particle's many possibilities collapse into one when it interacts with its environment. The infinite becomes specific. In human terms, this means that what you give your attention to solidifies into your experience. Focus long enough on fear, and it becomes the environment you live in. Focus on love, and the same is true. Life crystallizes around your choices of perception. The observer is not separate from the observed. You are not a bystander. You are a participant. I remember once sitting in the middle of a sleepless night, overwhelmed by the thought that my life was going nowhere. Everything felt closed off, as if the doors of possibility had shut. But in that stillness, I realized maybe I did not need to push harder. Maybe I only needed to change the way I was looking. Instead of seeing a closed hallway, I began to imagine windows opening, light filtering in. Nothing in the external world shifted in that moment. Yet something inside me did. By morning, I felt as though life had widened again. That is the quiet power of shifting awareness. It does not demand that the universe rearrange itself. It asks you to step into the version of the universe where the opening already exists. Quantum science, then, is not distant or cold. It is intimate. It is the language of possibility, written into the structure of everything. It tells us that life is not a single, locked timeline, but a sea of overlapping realities. The path you walk tomorrow already exists. Which one you enter depends on the frequency you tune to today. The mystics have always said this in another way: you do not create your destiny by force. You align with it by faith. Science now nods in agreement. The experiments confirm what the sages intuited. When you shift your consciousness, even slightly, you collapse into a different version of yourself, a different unfolding of life. This is not about ignoring pain or pretending struggle does not exist. It is about understanding that struggle is not the only channel available. Just as your television can display thousands of shows at once, but only brings forth the one you choose, consciousness works the same way. The program of despair is available. So is the program of peace. Your choice of focus is the remote control. So, when life feels immovable, remember the lesson of the quantum world. Barriers can be passed through. Connexion endure beyond distance. Possibilities collapse into reality based on what you attend to. And most importantly, you do not need to push the universe into cooperation. You need only shift yourself into the frequency where your desired reality is already alive. Perhaps that is what surrender really means. Not giving up, but tuning in, trusting that what you long for is not waiting in some distant future, but humming just beyond your current awareness. You need not force it into being. You need only step into the wavelength where it already sings. And when you do, you will discover something profound. The life you thought you were chasing has been here all along, quietly waiting for you to notice. 9. The creative silence. There comes a point in every journey where more effort does not bring more results. You work harder, think faster, push further, and yet, the door does not open. I know this place well. I once thought persistence meant never stopping, never pausing, never allowing space for anything but forward motion. But life, in its quiet wisdom, taught me that silence can sometimes do more than striving. Silence is not emptiness. It is not the absence of life, but the fertile ground of it. Imagine a seed planted beneath the soil. From the outside, nothing appears to be happening. You could stare at that patch of dirt for days and see no evidence of growth. And yet, in the unseen, roots are forming, structures are preparing, a fragile sprout is gathering its first strength. If you were to dig it up impatiently, you would only destroy what is trying to be born. Silence is like that. It holds the invisible work of becoming. In the quantum field, silence acts as a reset. When we stop pushing, stop grasping, we allow the waves of possibility to settle into alignment. It is like water after a storm stirred and chaotic. It needs stillness before it can become clear again. In that clarity, the reflection of what you truly desire can appear. I remember nights when I lay awake, consumed by worry. My mind circled the same questions. What should I do next? How will I make it work? The harder I thought, the tighter the knots became. Only when exhaustion forced me into quiet, when I finally gave up trying to figure it out, did I notice a soft whisper of direction inside me. Not an answer, shouted, but a gentle nudge, as if life itself was saying, "Now that you are listening, here is the next step." That whisper would not have been heard in noise. It needed the silence. Creative silence is not passive. It is receptive. It is the pause between breaths, the rest between notes in a song. Without the spaces, music would be chaos. Without pauses, life would lose its rhythm. Silence gives shape to sound, just as stillness gives shape to action. Think of a painter. They do not rush every stroke. They step back, observing the canvas, letting the image breathe before adding the next layer. That pause is as important as the brushwork itself. Or think of a musician. The beauty of a melody is not in the constant playing, but in the space between the notes. Silence is what allows the music to be felt. In spiritual practice, this silence becomes a bridge. The quantum field, that vast ocean of possibilities, is always humming. But like a crowded room, it is hard to hear the right voice if everyone is speaking at once. Silence clears the space. In that openness, the frequency of your deepest longing can emerge, and the field begins to rearrange itself around that resonance. This does not mean we abandon action. It means we learn the rhythm of alternating between effort and stillness. Action plants the seed. Silence waters it. Together, they create growth. I once believed that if I stopped moving, I would lose everything. But over time, I discovered the opposite when I honored silence. Life had a way of moving toward me. Unexpected calls, surprising opportunities, inner clarity. They often came, not when I was straining, but when I was still. There is also a healing in silence that no words can provide. When you sit quietly, without trying to fix yourself, you begin to notice that you are not broken. You are breathing. You are alive. The very fact of your existence is already enough. This recognition softens the restless need to prove, to chase, to grasp. From that softness, creation flows more naturally. Many fear silence because it feels like nothing. But nothing is not empty. Nothing is potential. In physics, the vacuum of space is not a barren void, but a field dense with energy, pregnant with possibility. Likewise, the silence within you is not dead space, but living potential, waiting for your awareness to open the door. So when life feels stuck, do not always rush to do more. Try pausing. Let the silence become your ally. Breathe deeply. Let the thoughts scatter and resettle. In that stillness, the quantum field begins to rearrange, aligning with the new version of you that is ready to be born. And when the time is right, you will feel the pull to act again. But this time, your action will not come from fear or desperation. It will come from clarity, from alignment, from trust. And that kind of action carries the weight of inevitability. It flows as naturally as a river finding the sea. The silence you once avoided may become the very place where life reshapes itself. In that quiet pause, your desired reality gathers its strength, ready to cross the bridge into form. And when it does, you will see that what you called nothing was, in truth, everything. 10. The heart as a compass. The mind is a remarkable tool. It calculates, it analyzes, it weighs pros and cons. It builds plans and maps strategies. But there is a reason why even the best laid plans often leave us feeling lost. The mind works with what it already knows: past experiences, familiar logic, old fears. It is like navigating a new landscape with an outdated map. You might move, but you may not truly arrive where you need to be. The heart, however, holds a different kind of wisdom. Not the wisdom of data, but of resonance. It feels into alignment. It knows when something carries the vibration of truth, even if you cannot explain why. The heart does not shout or argue. It whispers. It speaks in feelings, in subtle nudges, in the sense of ease or tightness you feel in your chest when you face a choice. I used to believe that being rational meant silencing the heart. I thought logic was the only reliable compass, but logic alone often left me circling efficient, yes, but not fulfilled. Over time, through mistakes and detours, I began to notice something: the times when I trusted the gentle pull of my heart, life unfolded with surprising grace. Doors opened that I could not have forced open. Paths revealed themselves that no amount of analysis could have predicted. Following the heart is not about abandoning reason. It is about integrating reason with intuition. The mind can plan the steps, but the heart senses the direction. When they work together, you move not only efficiently, but authentically. Think of it like sailing. The mind is the sail. It captures the wind, directs the force. But the heart is the compass. It ensures you are heading toward the right horizon. Without the sail, you drift aimlessly. Without the compass, you move quickly but in the wrong direction. Together, they bring balance. There were times when I stood at crossroads, unable to decide. On paper, one choice looked better, more secure, more logical, more respected. But in the quiet of my chest, something felt heavy. The other choice, less certain, less predictable, carried a strange lightness. It felt alive. Whenever I honored that lightness, I found myself walking into experiences that shaped me more deeply than any plan could have. The heart recognizes synchronicity. It knows when you are in the right place at the right time. Have you ever noticed how some meetings feel orchestrated? How certain opportunities arrive with uncanny timing? That is the heart's domain. It tunes you to the flow of life, guiding you into those moments of alignment. Science is beginning to affirm what mystics long knew. The heart has its own intelligence. It sends signals to the brain, not just the other way around. It carries electromagnetic fields that extend beyond the body, interacting subtly with the environment. When you tune into your heart, you are not just listening to your emotions. You are connecting with a deeper guidance system built into your being. The challenge is that the heart speaks softly, while the mind speaks loudly. The mind insists, debates, worries. The heart simply rests in knowing. To hear it, you must slow down, breathe, and listen beneath the noise. Sometimes this means sitting in stillness until the weight in your chest loosens, until a sense of clarity arises that no argument can shake. Living by the heart does not guarantee an easy path. It may lead you away from comfort zones, away from the approval of others, but it does guarantee a meaningful path, and meaning, I have learned, nourishes the soul more deeply than comfort ever can. When you let the heart guide you, you begin to notice a shift. Life feels less like a battle to be won, and more like a dance to be entered. You no longer force every step. You sense the rhythm and move with it. What once felt like coincidence now feels like choreography. The right people arrive. The right words are spoken. The right doors open. Not always on your schedule, but always on time. The heart, as a compass, does not just change decisions. It changes the way you experience yourself. You begin to trust your inner knowing, to respect your own rhythms. You stop measuring your worth against external standards and start aligning with the quiet joy of being true to yourself. And in that alignment, you not only find your way, you become the way for others. Your presence, guided by heart, gives permission for others to follow theirs. I do not say this as theory. I say this because I have lived both ways, the path of logic alone and the path where heart leads. Logic kept me safe, but often small. Heart led me into risks, into unknowns, but also into the moments where I felt most alive, most myself. Looking back, the greatest turning points of my life were not the times I calculated perfectly, but the times I listened inwardly and dared to trust that quiet pull. So, when you find yourself at the next crossroads, remember this: the mind can show you options, but the heart will show you direction. Let the heart be your compass. Let it guide you not only toward what makes sense, but toward what makes you whole. And if you follow it, you may discover that the journey becomes less about arriving at some distant destination and more about walking each step with a deep, quiet rightness. Because in the end, the heart does not just lead you where you need to go, it leads you home to yourself, coming home to what has always been. Your dream reality is not some faraway land you must chase with desperate effort. It is not something outside of you, hiding just beyond the horizon. It is here, quietly present, waiting for you to shift your frequency so that you can hear its music. Imagine a radio. The station is already broadcasting. The air is already filled with sound. Yet, until you tune the dial, the room feels silent. Your dreams are like that station, alive, vibrant, already singing. All that is required is the gentle act of tuning yourself to the right frequency. Quantum entanglement reminds us that you have never been separate from your possibilities. The versions of you who are strong, are free, joyful, abundant. They exist, not as fantasy, but as real threads woven into the fabric of reality. You are not inventing them. You are allowing yourself to see them. You are not pulling them into existence. You are aligning with the channel where they already live. This is why the distance between you and your dream is not measured in miles or years. It is measured only in vibration. How you feel, how you think, how you choose to see the moment in front of you. When you shift those, even slightly, you shift the channel, and suddenly, the life that once felt impossible begins to reveal itself. Not as a miracle falling from the sky, but as the natural rhythm of who you are. I have learned this the hard way. For many years, I chased dreams as if they were prey to be hunted. I pushed harder, worked longer, strategized endlessly, always believing I was just one step away. Yet the more I chased, the further they seemed to run. It was exhausting, like running in circles. Only when I stopped, when I allowed myself to breathe, to listen, to be, did I notice that what I had been chasing was already woven into the fabric of my life, waiting for me to soften enough to let it in. We are often taught that magic is rare, that it belongs to stories and exceptions. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if magic is not the exception, but the natural state? What if the only reason we miss it is because we keep looking for it in fireworks? While it hides in the quiet rhythm of everyday life, the smile of a stranger at just the right moment, the door that opens when you finally trust yourself, the relief that washes over you when you choose love instead of fear. These are not accidents. They are confirmations that you are in tune with the deeper song of life. The shift begins with trust. Trust is the bridge between where you are and where you long to be. Trust that you are not behind. Trust that you are not broken. Trust that life is not withholding from you, but inviting you. Every choice you make, every time you decide to see with compassion instead of judgment, every time you lean into gratitude instead of scarcity, every time you breathe through fear instead of surrendering to it, you are tuning the dial. Slowly, steadily, you bring yourself into resonance with the life that has been calling you all along. To live this way is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about remembering who you are, even in the imperfection. It is about walking through the mess and still choosing to carry the vibration of wholeness. It is about living as if you already belong, because you do. And when you live this way, the gap between you and your dreams dissolves. You realize there was never a gap at all, only the illusion of being out of tune. So, if you are weary of striving, let this be your reminder. You do not need to chase. You need only to return. Return to the frequency of who you are. Return to the truth that you have always been connected to the life you desire. Return to the simple, profound act of choosing again and again to live as if it is already here. And when you do, you may find that the so-called miracle you were waiting for was never waiting for you at all. It was waiting in you. It was the natural rhythm of your being, hidden under layers of noise, revealed when you finally remembered. The dream is not out there. It is in here. And the moment you allow yourself to align with it, you will see magic was never a stranger. Magic was always home,